Hello and welcome to tonight's edition of Daily Record Hotline Live, and we've got quite a packed show for you tonight. We're leading off, obviously, on the decision by the SFA to overturn Mohamed Diamande's red card at Tannadice, but we've got all manner of transfer stories that are simmering about, bubbling about, possibly breaking.
The busiest week of the season, that and Daniel's left you
To
left
do
you
this,
at the helm, Jack. Why? It's
it's extraordinary, isn't it?
terrible.
Well, you see, we were contacted about what I would do if I got a Saudi bid in for him, and I says I'd let him go, and I'd let him go very cheap. And now he's not turned up for his work.
Somebody no told him he's not allowed to take holidays now.
Yeah, well, I did say it should be banned. This is outrageous. I can't do this thing with the comments and all that, but I'll try my best. We'll muddle through it. We've got so much. We've got the Motherwell manager situation. We've got a couple of Celtic potential targets on the go. Obviously, I've been speaking to Mick Gannon and Craig Swan that are both down at Villa Park. They'll be in with Brendan Rodgers just now. They'd previously been speaking with Unai Emery ahead of a massive Champions League night. Yeah, loads to discuss, including, by the way, and I don't know what your take is on this, but I'll be interested to hear it later, the Everton link with Egerman at Rangers and Chelsea's link with Hefty. So let's see. I'd like to see your take.
Seem a bit sceptical about that one, Jacko.
No, far be it from me. But listen, let's get cut to the chase. We also hope to be joined by our resident referee, Des Roach, who hopefully will be along to give us his verdict on this quite astonishing mess that Nick Walsh and the SFA and Willie Collum have got themselves into over this Diomande red card. Scott, I haven't spoken to you since it happened at the weekend on Sunday. Give us A, your initial thoughts, and B, your thoughts now that the SFA come out, issued guidance supporting Nick Walsh immediately after the match on Sunday, which was strange. I've never seen it done before. And they've had to overturn the decision. Talk me through it from minute one, from the original incident.
No, my initial thoughts, Keith, were just like everybody else watching the game, wondering why the red card was produced in the first place. But then, obviously, when he gets sent to the monitor, you know yourself, 9 times out of 10 with these things, he's getting sent to change.
Well, somebody's in his ear saying, you've got this wrong, Nick.
Don Robertson's telling him to go and look at it because they think you've got it wrong. Now, they call it stubbornness, whatever. Nick Walsh was determined that he was going to stick to his guns. You could just tell his body language. He was convinced.
He's got a habit for doing that, Nick Walsh.
That he was right to give the red card. And obviously it infuriated Philippe Clement and Rangers. Then, as you say, you've this kind of peculiar off-the-record briefing that's out right after the final whistle. Or it seemed to be right after the final whistle. I don't know where that's come from or why that was. And at that point, you actually wonder...
It now starts to fail a smell test, though, doesn't it? What are they doing coming out saying this was right? There was that incredible word that was used, by the way. Negligible.
Yeah.
If it's not negligible. That was the definition of negligible for me. And I said it at the time, I just genuinely can't believe that Nick Walsh, having thought he's seen what he's seen, has then got the call to go come at the monitor, which means, right, okay, the guys in VR think I've made a mess of this. Yeah. I'll go and have another look. Do you know what it smacks of to me is that Nick Walsh saw what he wanted to see from the replays because he just about could manipulate it enough to back himself and say that he was right in the first place. When really, that's not what it's all about. It's all about looking at the evidence. I didn't see that as well as I thought I saw it, and I've got to change my mind.
But this is what I don't get about the whole incident, Keith. We watch Willie Collum every month on his VAR review show.
And he talks very openly and candidly.
Very well. It's a really good show. I think he's very honest, very open. He admits when they've made mistakes. Done it several times already this season. But you think of the Motherwell Kilmarnock incident with Dan Casey and Danny Armstrong.
Yeah.
When the ref, again, sticks by his guns and gets it completely wrong. Mm-hmm. And Willie Collum comes out quite rightly and says, look,
That can't happen.
It was a bad call. That shouldn't happen. We've spoke to the referees. We've spoke to the officials. Surely that is in Don Robertson and more so Nick Walsh's mind. I mean, I says to you before you come in, it's like if your boss in any walk of life keeps telling you to do something or keeps telling you not to do something because this is how you do it. If you keep disobeying that, I mean, at what point does your boss say, what's going on here?
Do you know something? And what astonishes me about it is, and I've said it, I don't know how many times this season on this show, I really like Nick Walsh as a referee. I think he's a good referee. I think he's definitely one of our best.
I think he's one of the better ones, yep.
You know, I'm happy for him to get all the big games going. But this one here is kind of thrown me for a loop a little bit because I can't understand what was making his head work.
No, the other thing, it's the last minute of the game.
Yeah.
Where is the necessity? I mean, surely, if you want to give 2 yellow cards, that's fine.
Nobody's bothering.
Nobody's even bothering. Do you think you've created this, as you say, this mess, and he's now obviously going to get into bother? I say bother, I mean, who knows?
Well, he's going to get carpeted.
Who knows?
Because I tell you what Willie Collin has been, when he's needed to give his men a bit of a shuriken, he's not shied away from it. So you can tell that he's going to pull Nick Walsh in and say, Nick, what were you thinking?
He will, but I'll bet he's still got a decent game next weekend.
Right.
And see, to be honest, Jacko, that's actually part of the bigger picture for me in terms of refereeing in this country. And I don't know this for a fact, but for what you hear, numbers are low in terms of good young referees coming through. You're hearing stuff about younger referees getting promoted beyond their ability.
Fast-tracked,
right?
yeah.
Fast-tracked. And I think that's why, even when these mistakes are being made, I'm sure from listening to Willie Collin, he would love to go at and say to Nick Walsh, listen, it's no good enough. So you'll be doing, with all due respect, Stenhousemuir at the weekend, and you'll not be back in the Premiership this month. I don't think you can. I think there's a dearth of good.
Well, there was
level.
There was the precedent set earlier this season. What was the one with the incident? And it was the League Cup final.
Yes, it was the VAR officials.
Rangers weren't awarded a penalty for the foul on Czerny, and they were given the weekend off. A few days later. So you never know. You never know. Nick Walsh might find himself at a loose end, having to go to shops with the missus on Saturday afternoon. But I guess that you're right. I guess that we don't have a talent pool to sustain it.
I don't think so.
But I think it would send out a good message.
No, I think you're right. And just come back to the off the record thing. It was very strange. But now that you look back on it, do you think that was put out there so Rangers wouldn't appeal to try and put them off?
Well, I don't know, but
because I thought at the time when I heard that off the record thing, my immediate reaction was, well, there's no point Rangers appealing this.
Yeah, you can't win it. The SFA have vindicated the referee on this occasion.
So the fact that they've still overturned
and
it
then had to collapse and reverse ferret on it, I find it astonishing.
Willie Collin will be raging, absolutely raging.
Look who's joined us, Des. What do you make of this almighty mess? Because I'm finding it pretty hard to get my head around.
I think when we obviously spoke, when we seen it for the first time, we agreed that it just looked absolutely shocking. The initial decision that was given out for it. B, then to be called across. And I'll always say that the referee does have the right to keep his own view, because at the end of the day, they are the ones that make the final decision. So she stuck it with. Then for the SFA to come out with a comment immediately afterwards and then retract it, there was no way that this could ever have won. No way.
Does that make, because look, do you know what I'm very kind of wary of, kind of going down the old conspiracy theory avenues, because Scottish football doesn't need these things. Certainly don't need to be promoted. There's enough of them that grow arms and legs. But I do see, and I have seen since the weekend, a lot of kind of Rangers fans suggesting that they're getting more than their fair share of these decisions. I'm not buying it. There's no conspiracy against Rangers, but this really doesn't help in terms of your guys, Des, when, honest mistakes and all that. This one, it's just so difficult to explain. As I said, I was saying to Scott, it was almost as if to me, he was desperate for his decision to be correct and desperate to be able to prove it was correct. And so he looked a few times at the replays and thought he saw enough to vindicate the decision, rather than concentrating on, what's the real actuality of this incident. He's almost used the replays in the wrong way to try and justify producing the red card.
I think the difficulty that for all of us is that we never really get a good view of the replays that he was shown. And this is another reason why for a long time that we've tried to vindicate, and I know they're now going to be trying it in Germany, is let's hear the conversation from VAR. Let the referee explain it. It will only take 5 seconds. I'm given a penalty for this or that. In this case, it would have taken nothing to say red card, rescinded, violent conduct, gone, and just going down for unsporting behaviour, because there's nowhere in the laws of the game can support a red card for that decision. And Grant Holt wasn't cautioned for obviously the throw that he had. So yeah, it's not a very good look, and I'd like to I would feel that Willie Collum won't be best pleased at this moment in time.
No, and it's just another one that lands in his plate, and he has to try and explain it now. He has been very good at fronting it all up, Des, hasn't he? He's come out, he's communicated well, but I wonder as well, because Nick Walsh might be the next one to get himself thrown under a bus here. Because it's very hard for Willie Collum to, sit there in front of a camera and factually explain what the decision-making process that made Nick Walsh decide to stick to his guns. Really difficult.
Nick's our number one referee, the guy that gets all the big appointments. So I was quite surprised that Nick jumped in there so quickly. The evidence was there for everyone to see. It was not a red card. There was nothing there to support that decision. How he's went down that route, I have no idea. I think it was Don who was fourth official. Don's obviously seen something sufficient enough to get him across. He was almost trying to bail him out there.
Yeah, that's what I think, yeah.
He never took that lifeline.
Tell me this, Des, and thank you very much for joining us at the last minute. But in terms of what we saw previously after the League Cup final, when a couple of the guys were told to take the weekend off, are we in a position that Nick Walsh can be told to take the weekend off?
I think you've already heard Willie say at the start of the season that guys will be held accountable for decisions making the field of play. And it may be a case that Nick drops down to a championship game or whatever. My personal feelings is he'll try and support Nick as much as he can. And maybe you'll see him in a Premier League game this week as VAR or as fourth official. And then maybe the following week, maybe down at a championship. It would be... listen, if a player makes a bad decision in such a high-profile game, then they would expect to be dropped for the next match, and that's why we get the appointments on a Tuesday now. So they give themselves that wee bit of time. So it'll be interesting to see where he ends up.
Des, do you know how it works in terms of the actual practicalities? What happens next with Nick Walsh and Willie Collum? Does he go in with he went into Hampden yesterday? When do they get together? When does Willie Collum sit the officials down and say, look, we're going to go over the weekend, or is it done individually? Do you know how that whole process works?
From what I like to believe, I know the way we used to have it. We used to have a monthly meeting together, the Category 1 referees, and they would have that there. Now, obviously, the referees aren't full time here. Nick's got a busy job as a teacher, so it'll be difficult for him to also just drop things a day. But I'll guarantee that they've had discussions Sunday night, Monday night, probably tonight as well. They'll have discussions. That's the way Willie will want it. So yeah, there will be this. This won't be blown over. It will be addressed, and I think what they'll use it as a training tool. They have their next get together and show it and explain exactly why it was never an order not offence.
That's the problem though, is that we've had a similar incident with Casey and Armstrong at Firth Park, and Willie Collum said, "No, this can't happen. Here's the protocol. Here's what should have happened," and yet it's happened again. That's a disappointing thing, is it not?
I think the thing with Casey was there was more obvious contact.
Yeah,
you could see because he was like grabbed the player with the shirt and it's went up. This one there is just no contact on the player. So this is the harder one to justify. But as you quite rightly said, It's the inconsistency between the two of them. And while you've got humans being involved, you'll never have 100% consistency. Certainly not up here.
Des, listen, thank you for joining us at such late notice tonight. That was really kind of you to jump on. It is great to get your sort of kind of expert view from the official side, but you know, I don't think you've really cleared anything up, if you don't mind my saying. I'm still as confused as I was when you came on.
I don't know how we can make this clearer. The clearest bit is it was a monumental error from Nick, who was offered support. So the blame, and it's not about apportioning blame, it's trying to apportion reason. The only person that would be able to tell you this reason is Nick Walsh himself, because Don Robertson's got him across, say, I don't think that's a red card. Here's your opportunity. He's chosen not to take that.
He's doubled down and he's put himself in a bit of a hole because of it. Des, thank you so much for joining us, and our resident referee will be back again shortly, no doubt, because I think they're picking up a bit of momentum now with these refereeing decisions, isn't they?
I'd rather see them getting them right.
Right, Des, listen, thanks again, man.
No bother, guys. Cheers.
Cheers,
Scott.
Scotty, I'll read you some of the comments that are coming in. Plenty of them. John Curry on YouTube. You can understand Walsh misinterpreting the incident live, but him not changing his mind after going to the VAR monitor for another look. Yeah. Rangers easy okay. Regular, again on YouTube. A joke of a decision at the time. Walsh is an arrogant referee. Thank God it wasn't costly. God, it wasn't costly. I'm sure an interview and an apology from Colm, he thinks that will suffice. Rangers need to call this out. That's the stuff that worries me. What we call it, what's getting called out here? I would suggest there's a full-blown conspiracy going on, because that's kind of tin helmet time, is it not? Tin foil hats.
Some people will, obviously, but no, as you say, I think that's a dangerous road to go down. And to be fair, I think Rangers have been kind of harshly dealt with some decisions.
Yeah, but they've also got right in the front foot on more than one occasion over the past wee while, and I find it's been quite unhelpful at times as well.
Yeah, but I think
the stuff about Willie Collum when Willie Collum was still refereeing, I thought that was badly judged.
But I think bringing it up to date, Jack, I mean, I think arguably the biggest decision of the season so far was that Cherny instant in the League Cup final. And I actually thought Clement and Rangers handled that reasonably well, did they not? I don't think they were over the top. I think Clement was very complimentary of the way Willie Collum dealt with it. And to be fair,
Clement was like the grown up in the room with that one.
I think so.
I think you're right. He actually railed against his own board and said he didn't want to be part of that.
Yeah.
Look, we could talk about this for another half an hour, but we won't. There is a small matter of Celtic playing a Battle of Britain Champions League tie tomorrow night, Scott. We've got a bunch of transfer stuff to go through as well before we're over tonight. But I caught up earlier with Craig Swan and Mick Gannon, who were down at Villa Park, as I said, for the pre-match matchday -1 press conferences. And it appears that we've got a technical problem getting that VT.
So what happens when Daniel's not here?
Daniel, man. It's killing me here, isn't it? Right, in terms...
It's a big game.
It's a cracking game. And it's almost like it feels like it's almost a free shot for Celtic. Because they've got what they needed to achieve. They've got it in the bag, which is a place in the playoff stages. They're going down to Villa Park, massive game, big spotlight. It feels as if they can almost go and enjoy the occasion, but that is caveated by the fact that Aston Villa are desperate for the 3 points to try and secure a top 8.
I was going to say there's more pressure on Villa, isn't there? Because they're expected to be in that top 8. They want to avoid a playoff.
I don't know, are they expected? They've not been in the Champions. This is their first time in the Champions League.
But Premier League clubs, Jacko, big Premier League clubs would expect to be in that top 8, even at that level.
Man City can't even get in it.
Well,
top 16.
That's how tough it is. But no, I think you're right. I mean, I think Celtic... I think this is the kind of scenario they'd have hoped for when they seen the fixtures coming out of the Champions League draw, hoping that they could go to Villa Park, no having to, no desperate to get a point or desperate to get a win, to progress to the knockouts. And I think you're right, they can go and enjoy it, a wee bit of pressure off. They're obviously missing a couple of players, key players, massive players. Maida suspended, and Kyogo obviously no longer there. So
you're looking at Adam Ida, big night for him.
Huge night.
He's got to front up the attack, and you're wondering, what the options look at in the wide areas. Is it Yang that maybe comes in, or
Kuhn will definitely play, obviously, and I think Yang's probably in contention.
Yeah,
to start on the other side. Yang, to be fair, I watched him at Ross County. I know it's a totally different level a couple of weeks ago. I actually thought he played really well. He's obviously been in and out. I'm not sure whether Brendan Rodgers sees him as a long-term player at Celtic, or whether in the summer they might look to not to move him on. But
I think the amount of focus that's currently on the January transfer market, where Celtic are looking at, and it is wide players, I think it suggests that there's a couple there just now that are already surplus to requirements. Luis Palma and Yang, basically.
Of course.
I mean, obviously Celtic are looking at, I think it's £7 million winger from Norway. And look, do you know what? Not only has Daniel decided, but see, now I've got kind of mild dyslexia. So the worst names in the world are getting linked with Celtic right now for me. So £7 million winner, Sondre Orjaseter, Norwegian.
Sounds good.
So
just shows you the money though for 21. I think he's 21 years
21, and obviously we know as well it might cost in excess of £13 million for Matthias Kvistgaarden, the striker, 22-year-old striker. It's a lot of money.
That's what Brøndby are looking for. I mean, whether Celtic can go that high or whether they can negotiate that down for Kvistgaarden. But
the suggestion is that Ajax are on the case for him as well, so it doesn't get any easier.
A very Ajax type signing, that, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But no, you're right. I mean, in terms of the Norwegian winger, he clearly wants a wide man. I think you're right. Palma is obviously on his way out, and Yang might be the next one whether it's in January or the summer.
I have good news. We can now rejoin Craig Swan and Michael Cannon. I hope so, or am I just walking out of here? I'm about to have a mental breakdown.
I'm no hosting it. if you go, we both go.
Right, so as previously promised, earlier on today, not that long ago before we came on air, I caught up with Craig Swan and Mick Gannon outside Villa Park. Michael and Craig, well, I don't need to introduce where you are. The sign behind you says that. How does the atmosphere feel down there? I know you've only been down since yesterday, but is it starting to feel like a big game?
Right at this particular moment in time, no. The beer barrels have been filled behind us, and we've just been to Tesco. So not rampant, no.
You've got to love the glamour of the Champions League. We just want to hide here next to the bins outside Villa Park. It's the glamour of European football for us.
But obviously you were at Unai Emery's presser today, guys. He certainly has prioritised this as a very big match. He is desperate to get Villa through without going through the playoffs, isn't he?
Yeah, he was certainly speaking, and he mentioned the top 8 more than one occasion. He obviously sees not just the prestige in it, but the possibility to skip 2 games. It's obviously a punishing schedule for them as well. And obviously there's a lot attached to it. We get into that top 8 in terms of financing that as well. So they've certainly targeted it, and he's spoken about, he was mentioning every game in Europe being special. He talked about the Bayern Munich game. He talked about the first game with young boys and things like that. So they're really into this. I mean, we have to remember this is still new for Aston Villa to be back in this. Obviously, European champions before, but in the new Champions League, they hadn't been there for a while. This is still a massive deal for them to play in these games. So they're right up for this. Right up. For
He's got some injury concerns though, doesn't he?
He's got a few. Obviously, the Tyrone Mings one at the weekend was a bad one for him. John McGinn just coming back, looking a bit dodgy as well, which would be a bit of a blow for them, and for John McGinn as well. He'd love to play in this fixture, wouldn't he? I thought Emery was quite cute today. I thought he was clearly making sure he wasn't going to give Celtic any ammunition. I mean, he spoke really well about Celtic. He
Yeah.
kind of danced around the previous games against them. Obviously, he was the manager at PSG when they put 12 past Celtic in 2 games in the Champions League during Rodgers' first spell.
Yeah.
He was also the Spartak, the Moscow manager when Celtic beat them out in Moscow under Lenny a few years ago. But he kind of glossed over those kind of games. Didn't want to get dragged in that kind of memory lane. And he spoke a lot of kind of respectful tones about Celtic, didn't he? He was kind of dancing around it a wee bit. He seemed like a manager who's desperate not to kind of give Celtic any kind of fuel.
Yeah.
I think he's wary that Celtic are a threat to him. But no, so he's spoken kind of very glowing terms about Celtic.
He does kind of hit things with a straight bat, doesn't he? Unai Emery, he's never really going to give you that kind of flamboyant line or anything like that.
Boring's the word, Keith, isn't it?
That is the word, you know. But
I danced around that word, yeah. It was slightly boring, yeah.
Yeah, okay, I danced around it. What was exactly latest on McGinn then? Because obviously I watched the game at the weekend, and I think he came on for the last 20 minutes. He looked all right.
Yeah, I suspect that I would say there's a good chance the same thing will probably happen again. That probably, my hunch would be that we keep him in reserve again and bring him on later in the game if he was needed.
Right.
Thought his minutes up. So he's not been out for a long time. You know, it's not been a long period he's been out. So,
but 5 or 6 games.
He's a captain. I mean, he's such a big player going forward for them. They're not going to take any risks. I wouldn't have thought. I don't think, unless he's absolutely 100%, I don't think he'd be banged in from the start. I would be surprised. Why would you risk somebody like that in forms?
Yeah, and obviously you've been up here at Lennoxtown today. Jota was training with Celtic, his old teammates for the first time since his move. Celtic look busy again in the transfer market, getting linked with more names now, which I have to tell you, the sort of names that are bad news for the dyslexics among us like myself. But as a Norwegian winger, Sondre Orgesæter, and obviously we've known about the Danish striker Mathias Kvistgaarden for some time. It feels as if they're not done, not by a long shot.
Well, there's going to be more, and there's going to be more names between now and, was it February the 3rd this year? February the 2nd?
Yeah, Monday, yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's going to be more. Celtic are going to be looking right up to the end of this window. They're not going to stop. And I think we've spoken about it in recent days about the fact I think there is some real thought going into the planning ahead of the summer because of the Champions League qualifiers. I think it's very important that Celtic aren't caught short because the experiences of this season, we've spoken about it, the experiences of this season have been so good for Celtic. Those games are the biggest games of the year almost. Coming up in the summer, the qualifiers, however many they've got, they have to get through them. You can't progress in the Champions League if you're not in it. So Celtic want to be ready to go. They don't want to be caught short. And you know what the summer market's like, Keith. Yeah. You know the big clubs and the big leagues don't really start doing their business till later on because they're back later and things like that.
That's right.
Qualifiers to worry about. So you kind of get the feeling Celtic are trying to get their ducks in a row ready and be organised and be prepped. So I think there'll be more names and more people being looked at before the end of the window, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, there's even been links with Evan Ferguson, but I think West Ham United looking the driving seat to do a loan deal with Brighton for that one. What do you expect, Michael? Tell me this: did Unai Emery mention anything about Louis Barry today and Celtic's interest in him?
Not in tech. No, it looks like he's going elsewhere anyway. I think that.
Yeah, he's going to Hull.
So I don't think that one got particularly off the ground anyway. The two words tonight, I think we're talking to Ben Rodgers later on tonight. The 2 words is going to be Kieran Tierney again. I mean, obviously, it looks like Alex Bailly is going to be heading out to Italy, and that's the green light, isn't it? That's
the interesting part. That's a really interesting part that it does look as if Celtic are going to sanction that. Now, I can't see Celtic sanctioning that unless they feel adequately covered.
Well, this is the big one tonight. I think supporters want to hear that this is a goer, and it's a goer for the now rather than for the summer. So that's going to be interesting. I think that's another one that will excite punters, isn't it? It's putting the band back together. They get Jota back, and then they get Tierney. They got Rodgers back as well.
I know. All they need now is Matt O'Reilly and Virgil van Dijk.
Well, that's what I mean. They get £9 million for Rodgers. He comes back for nothing. They get Jota back for $6 million after selling for 25, and Tierney back for nothing after selling 25. It's some bit of business, isn't it?
That's staggering stuff. Right. So in terms back to the game tomorrow night, guys, Villa are sitting in 9th, I think, on 13 points. A win doesn't even guarantee them to leapfrog Leverkusen. I think are above them on 13 points as well. But you kind of feel with Celtic a bit of a feel-good factor about this whole competition. It's almost like a free shot. What are you expecting from the game itself? I think it could be tight.
Yeah, I think it might be tight as well. I mean, Celtic have shown good grit on the road in the last couple of games. Kept it reasonably tight, managed to get themselves over the line for points. And the Bergamo and Zagreb. Listen, Aston Villa will be strong, they'll be good. And like I say, they have that incentive and that motivation to try and get. Whereas for Celtic, it's mathematically possible. It's pretty much unrealistic. You need so many results.
No, you need snookers.
Yeah, it could even be by the end of the fixtures tonight. It might be that it's not possible. We're not quite sure entirely, what games would have the deciding bearing on it. But Aston Villa is more realistic. So you kind of feel like, I think there'll be a lot of motivation. The Celtic just want to come down, play well and prove a point to people. Listen, Brendan Rodgers doesn't have to prove anything to anybody, but you only need to be down in this country for 5 minutes. The league just gets scoffed at. That's it. The Scottish Premier League gets scoffed at, and that's it. And Rangers have done well against Spurs. They did well against Manchester United last week, and Celtic want to go and strike a blow as well. They'll be well up for it as well. But so I think I'm not sure it'll be open, but I think there'll be chances. I think it'll be a decent game, but I don't think it'll be a kind of. Jacob Ramsey touched on it today. He doesn't expect it to be a basketball game. That's not the way Unai Emery sets Aston Villa up, and it's not the way Brendan. They're both possession-based teams, so I don't think it'll be bang, 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 100 miles an hour. But I think there'll be chances.
Yeah, I can.
Big night for like Adam Ida. I think. Obviously, Kyogo now departed. I think it's a big night for him. He's kind of got to stake that claim that he is. I mean, they're still talking about strikers coming in. I think they will bring a striker in Celtic, but this is a night he's got to go and lead the line. It won't be an easy night, maybe a hard shift, but he's got to go and show that he can be the main man for Celtic. Because now he's got a big chance for him, so he's got to take it.
Dyson Maida's obviously going to be a bad miss as well, isn't he?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Who does he go with in the wing? Does he go with Yang, or does he go a bit more narrow and play Luke McCowan? I think the latter would be a smarter move for this kind of game. But it depends. He might give Yang another shot. Again, someone who's maybe not quite grabbed these opportunities previously. A big night, he gets the nod. But so there's a lot for Celtic to consider. It's a free punch, like you say, though.
Quickly, guys, I've got 30 seconds here. Give me your score predictions, nice and sharp.
1-1.
3-2 Villa, narrow defeat. I think it'll be a basketball match. I don't agree with Jacob.
Never agrees with me.
Right, brilliant, lads. Enjoy it. Cheers, boys. Scotty, boys spoke very well there, as they always do. What are you anticipating from this game tomorrow night? An open, end-to-end, good British Battle of Britain ding-dong, or a more of a tactical, cagey affair?
No, I think it might be quite open.
So they are, actually.
I think Villa... Listen, Unai Emery's done brilliant down there, obviously, but he's missing key players in defence at the moment. They're trying to sign a couple of centre backs in this window. Disasi from Chelsea and Foyt, I think, from Villarreal. So I think Villa can be got at. If Celtic can produce going forward, I think, as Swanee said, I think there'll be chances for them. We've touched on, obviously, they're missing a couple of attacking players with Kyogo gone and Maida suspended, but I think it'll be fairly open. I think when the game has that
British edge
to it, I think there'll be that kind of feel to it.
I kind of get the feeling with these games is they could become tactical. The managers could try but when the atmosphere gets up, when the game gets going, they sometimes take on a life of their own, these matches.
100%.
That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping it's one of them.
Totally agree. And also, although we're saying Villa need the pot, it's not as if there's like so much riding on it. It's not like the second leg of a tight tie. I think they can play with a wee bit of freedom, both teams. And listen, Brendan Rodgers will want to get in there and get a result. Going back to the Premier League ground. He's obviously had a couple of bad experiences against Emery in the past. But going back to England, you know what Brendan's like. He want to put on a good show. He don't want Celtic to get well beaten or get embarrassed or anything like that. So I think it'll be fairly tight. I think it'll be fairly open, but I do think Villa will edge it. As I say, I think Celtic missing a couple of players, and just what Villa have got middle to front at their disposal. You think of Watkins and Bailey and Tielemans and people like that.
Duran.
Morgan Rogers. I mean, it's some attack.
Powerful boys as well, aren't they? Big boys.
In the Premier League, as we know, can be a different level altogether. So it'll be tough for Celtic, but I do think it'll be tight. As I say, I think it'll be open. I think Celtic will score, but I think Villa will ultimately come out on top.
Listen, the comments have been flooding in from guys all night, and I've been trying to bang as many up on the screen as I can while trying to do the Richard Clayderman thing with 3 keyboards. Here's a good point from Mark Fairfield on YouTube. We should have kept Kyogo till after this game. Staggering decision. Kinda is a little bit when you think about it. Why not just delay it? Yeah, I know that I think there was an agreement in place that as soon as Celtic had secured that place in the top 16, this deal could be triggered.
Yeah.
But there is maybe a bit of value in saying that. Why not want it? Just keep him for this game.
I think we all thought that. I mean, when we were talking about Kyogo going, and there was these rumours about bids coming in. I think we all thought nothing will happen till after the Villa game. But as you say, you don't know how long this deal has been kind of in place for. Jota going one way, Kyogo going the next. You don't know what kind of demands Rennes have put on it. When do they need them for? So, and
they need them ASAP, don't they?
I think you're right. As soon as Celtic had that knockout place guaranteed, then there's nothing stopping them. But certainly it'll be a big miss because, as I say, with Villa missing players at the back, I mean, at the weekend they had to put Luca Dean back at centre back, and he had a nightmare. I mean, he's a left back or a wing back. So it'll be interesting to see how they line up. But you've got to think if Kyogo was there, it'd have caused them a serious problem.
Do you know what? I'm just thinking about it. You kind of wonder, you think back to Atalanta away, and it was Ida that got the shout to lead the line. Maybe this was always in Brendan Rodgers' mind.
Possibly.
Because his physicality and he'll offer, the chance for Celtic to get out from the back, to just kind of use him as a landing strip and bring the other guys into play. That maybe is
possibly
been in his tactical sort of.
I hadn't really thought of that, but you might be right. It was they went with a different approach in Bergamo because they knew.
And this is similar to that night.
Well, they knew the standard opposition. They knew they were going to come under the cosh, and as you say, they probably will experience a bit of that at Villa Park as well.
Right, okay, in terms of, let's kind of sum up the sort of transfer business, the ongoing stuff. Right, we spoke briefly about the Rangers situation. Jeffrey, I suppose, target for Chelsea. Diomande getting linked with Everton, and Rangers in discussions of sort, although nothing offered yet in terms of a new contract for Yanis Hadji. Of these 3 things, what's the most likely to happen?
I think Hadji getting another deal. That will ultimately come down to him, though, because
he might have to take a wage cut.
Yeah, I mean, having asked Philippe Clement about this directly the other week, you could see with the manager's kind of response that he would love it to happen because he knows now that Hadji's a key player.
Took you a while, Phil.
Did that, despite us telling him. He likes his attitude. He likes the influence he has on the team. I think he likes him in the dressing room. He's a big character, Hadji, big personality in there. So he would love him, I think, to be part of this. I hate the word, but part of this project that Rangers are in the midst of. I think when Clement looks at the makeup of his squad in the next year or two, assuming he'll be there, he'll want a kind of core experienced players, obviously, with the young ones running about him. And I think he looks at Hadji now as being pretty important.
A bit of a leader.
Aye, definitely.
So what about Hefty and Diomande? Are you expecting people to come in for him for either of them before the end of the window, or do you think that it's probably something that will be put in the back burner this summer for the pair?
I think it'll be the back burner for both of them. I mean, listen, I know we're kind of laughing a wee bit about Chelsea. I don't think Chelsea would come in for Jeffrey right away in terms of him going down there and getting into Enzo Maresca's squad, that's not going to happen.
No, but they do have a habit of going and looking at these sort of younger players, especially all nationalities.
They do.
And the information is solid, that there has been a discussion of sort.
And they've got, they're linked with clubs abroad where they send young players.
Yep.
And Jeffrey's still only 20.
Looks older, doesn't he?
He does. A 20-year-old.
Be checking that passport.
A 20-year-old Brazilian. And listen, I said Jeffrey's had good games and bad games. I think he's had a lot of good games for Rangers. I think he's been an excellent signing. And I said when he first came in, whatever you might think of him, and you knew that he was going to have deficiencies defensively. We've seen it in pre-season against Man U at Murrayfield. A bit naive, but that can develop, that can come. He's only 20 years old. I mean, listen, we watched Borna Barisic, who was a seasoned international, struggle at his back post against Celtic in certain games.
Every time he played at Celtic.
Rangers. So Jeffrey's got time on his side. It wouldn't surprise me if big clubs in England or abroad are looking at him. And it's the same with Egerman, because as we've discussed on here before, I think we both agree, this boy, you don't want to get carried away, but he looks as if he could be the real deal. And if clubs in England or abroad aren't looking at him, then they're not doing their jobs properly. It's just it's how long Rangers can withstand that, because they want to try and get the best out of him. I think I mentioned it on here before. If a big bid comes in, could they accept it? But getting back for a year on loan,
you've seen it done, haven't you?
That could be the same with Jeffrey as well. So I think clubs will be looking at these boys, which is exactly where Rangers want to be as a club, because they've not been there for a long time.
Yeah. Listen, a bit of news on the Celtic transfer front. So we mentioned earlier about Sondre Orgesæter, Norwegian winger, a Norwegian club called Sarpsborg. Well, Hampus Andersen, the sporting director of Sarpsborg, has spoken about this afternoon, about this link. His quote, Scott, in general, Sondre is and has been a highly valued player for us. Our main goal is not to sell him this window and keep him for at least till the end of the season. Apparently, Celtic have been joined and shown interest by Fiorentina, Parma and Nice. Let me tell you something. Fiorentina, Parma and Nice, I've been to all three on more than one occasion. If I was a young boy from Norway, I might have my eye on one of them.
On Nice?
Well, I like Nice, don't I? But Parma and Fiorentina...
Nice are East End of Glasgow. There's no difference, surely.
Interesting. So that's one to keep an eye on, because if there is that level of interest, you can might very well want to keep the guy, but if somebody starts hitting the figures that you've got set aside, these clubs sell.
And also, Jacko, I think this goes back to a brilliant point that Swanee made about Celtic trying to get their ducks in a row for next season.
Yeah.
It's all right, the Norwegian club saying we want to keep him in the summer, but if you're Celtic and you're really keen on this,
you want him to get 6 months under the table.
You want him now. I think Swanee's hit the nail on the head. Scottish clubs, particularly the Old Firm, have been caught cold, caught short too many times with these championship
lastminute.com recruitment.
100%.
Celtic their strategy's been great in this transfer window. So, it might well mean, by the way, and you look at Kvistgaarden, 13 million quid, Ajax in the picture. But Celtic have got the finances now to compete against clubs of that level for players of that stature, exciting young players. So, I think there's definitely going to be more ins on the way before this window shuts for Celtic.
Yep.
What else have we got, Scott? There's been a couple of signings through in Edinburgh today. A departure and an arrival. Daniel Oyegoke has left Hearts to sign for Hellas Verona in Serie A. He's joined them on a permanent deal. He joined the Jambos last summer from Brentford, featured 26 times in all competitions for the Gorgie side. Good
business for them. 6 months in, on low money, and you get a profit after.
Well, is this the supercomputer?
Well, it's the model that Hearts. I mean, 6 months is pretty quick. We're not sure the exact figures, but
we don't know the figures.
That is the model.
That's what interests me. That's what interests me. Are they already starting to get a return on these players that are coming in and it's crunching data and all that? Interesting. Now, across the city, Leith Hibernian have signed Gambian international Alassane Mane on a 3.5-year deal. The midfielder joins from Odense Bold Club for undisclosed fee. Mane, 26, played at Barcelona's famous La Masia Academy and featured at the club's youth and B team alongside the likes of Mark Cucurella. Looks like, on the face of it, an exciting signing.
Good pedigree. Obviously, I've not watched him, but I think they need a central midfielder.
They do it.
He's at a good age. The profile's good. The background is good. I heard Malcolm Mackay's comments after the signing, and I've obviously watched them for a long time. I like the fact that he said they've been very particular in going for quality over quantity. I think Hibs need to do that. They've been guilty of doing it the other way for the last couple of seasons, and I don't think their recruitment's been anywhere near good enough. So Hibs are obviously, they've had a wee bit of form. They're going up the table. As I say, I think they needed another central midfielder in there. This guy they've obviously been watching for a while. So on the face of it, it looks like a decent signing. Good pedigree.
Right, talking about good pedigree, quite an interesting story to come up earlier on today. Former Australia national coach Graham Arnold seems to be throwing his name indirectly, like boomerang style, into the ring for the Motherwell job. That's a surprise name, isn't it?
It's a bit. Can I get a kind of Stuart Baxter feel?
It does a
feel
bit. I'm glad you said that.
Again, just say good pedigree. It was only a few years ago he was managing Australia at the World Cup. I remember there was the great video calls that he made to the likes of Cammy Devlin and Martin Boyle and that when he brought them into the squad for the World Cup. So clearly a good manager. If he's throwing his hat in the ring and he wants a Motherwell job, they'd be crazy not to at least have a look at his CV. I think he'll end up at Fir Park. Probably not.
Interesting, Scott. I spoke to somebody that will have an eye on events at Fir Park and how this kind of recruitment search for a new manager goes. And he's been linked quite heavily, as a matter of fact, expressing reservations about why it ended the way it ended for Stuart Kettlewell, side sitting fifth in the table, and the effect that the abuse has had on his family. I think Motherwell fans might have scored a major own goal there. That's the sort of stuff that's clearly putting potential candidates, making them think twice. Now I have some breaking news to end the show. Kieran Tierney has officially signed a pre-contract to return to Celtic. As has been confirmed, a press conference going on at Villa Park just now with Brendan Rodgers. We knew the deal was going to get done. There's the confirmation, and now, Scott, it's just a question of can Celtic push Arsenal's buttons and make sure that they get him released in time to come up the road before next Monday?
Well, they'll be desperate to get the loan deal done now, so he's got 6 months before he signs permanently. Obviously, Alec Valle, it looks as if that's almost been confirmed as well, going to Como.
I think that was the giveaway for me when the Valle thing gets confirmed that Celtic are going to sanction that. Yeah, they must be in a fairly good position thinking that Tierney will be part of the squad before the end of before the start next week.
It's taken a bit of time, Jack, I think, because of Arsenal's situation with left backs. I mean, I think Zinchenko has stated he wants to go. Arsenal think they can get 25, 30 million, and there's clubs interested. If he went, they'd be left with only Tierney and the boy Miles. Is it Lewis Skelly?
Yeah, the boy that got
sent off at the weekend. He was a terrific player, by the way, but still very young. Obviously, the likes of Timber and Calafiori can play it left back and have been a lot this season, but you just wondered whether Arteta might no sanction the Tierney loan if Zinchenko went, and I think that's why it has dragged on a wee bit. But I think you're right that the giveaway was Valle getting the green light to go to Italy. You've got to assume that the Celtic have had a thumbs up to say this can happen in January.
It looks very much like it, Scott. Everything should become a little bit clearer over the course of the next 24 hours. Either way, we'll be back here tomorrow night. Well, I will. I don't know if you will, but I will, because I sleep here now. And now especially I don't have Daniel to press all the buttons. What am I going to do? Anyway, listen, can't thank you enough, guys, for all the comments, all the interaction. Thanks for sticking with me as I'm trying to my best to put it together. Scott, thank you, and
Pleasure.
We'll be back this time tomorrow, and I think it's fair to say that in 24 hours' time, there's probably going to be more news floating about and more stories floating about, because this just feels as if it could get a bit mental between now and Monday's deadline. Anyway, cheers, guys. Thanks again, and we'll see you tomorrow.